All right, welcome back. I gave you an extra minute there. Hopefully you feel well rested and ready to go for the next 41 minutes. Thank you again to Jim. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the coach for one of the coaches for Boston Green Academy's middle school debate team for 5 years now, I think, Miss Ariel Velez. And Ariel, if you want to just tell folks a little bit about yourself as a coach, that would be great.
All right, hi everyone. So my name is Ariel Velez, and I have been coaching middle school debate at Boston Green Academy for 5 years. This will be my 6th year there. Mostly novice, JV, a few varsity. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go over some ways that I would introduce the topic to my students. Most of them would be middle schoolers, 6th grade, 7th grade. And I'm assuming for most of them, there'll be a novice, a few returning for JV.
All right, thanks. And so the reason why we picked Ariel for this session is I always love going to her practices at the beginning of the year because I think she does a great job of engaging students throughout the year, but especially at the beginning of the year and introducing them to the topic. It's certainly a situation where I never go into her classroom and hear from the students that they feel particularly overwhelmed. They maybe feel a little bit nervous. They maybe feel a little bit like they're not sure about how the tournament's going to go, but they don't feel like they're learning too much too quickly. And I think that has a lot to do with Ariel's approach. We also used some of Ariel's approach in conjunction with a few other things to inform our weekly lesson plans. Again, those the whole novice unit of lesson plans, the first 11, I think, lessons for the year, will be sent out once a week in weekly emails, but are also available, will also be available this week for you to start thinking about your lessons for the year that you're going to use with your debaters. And those are designed to be kind of about 90 minutes each, so they're certainly a little bit longer. You may need to even break them up across multiple practices, but really the goal is so that you don't have to do too much planning in addition to what we've already provided for you to really get your students ready for this first tournament. So Ariel, I'll be the one sharing my screen, and Jim had some great points and ran slightly longer than I was thinking, so I'll just let you know where I think we're gonna need to skip to keep us moving. But I'll turn it over to you. Let me share my screen. Here we go. Sorry, hang on. All right, sharing and present. Okay, so in the first BDL lesson plans, weeks 1 through 3, we talk about introducing debate and the topic to students. And so Ariel, I'll turn it over to you. Here you go.
Okay. So first, just to get them thinking about the topic, once they've come to debate practice, we probably had some games, talk about what debate is, and then to get them thinking about the topic, I'd start out with a game. And I like to use this one, it's called the Would You Rather game. And basically you take 2 items and you have the students kind of think about, if you had to live in a world where one of these items was gone, which one would you choose to keep? Which one would you get rid of? And why? And we kind of talk about it and vote about it. And we'd move up, we raise the stakes a little bit more each time. Okay, so we can kind of try it together if you'd like, just so you can see how it works. So the first one I would say would be something simple. Let's say cake versus ice cream. Okay, so when you think about this, if you have to get rid of something, it's gone from the world forever, you will never see it again. Which one would you rather keep? The cake or the ice cream? Which one would you choose?
Ice cream keep.
And so we're going to put this, put which one you would rather keep in the chat so we can see in the chat and we'll know who wins. In person, Ariel, you said you usually have them move to 2 different sides of the room.
Yeah, just to get some movement in. They move to a side of the room. Seeing a lot of ice cream. All right, very few cake people. Okay, mostly ice cream. All right, great. So then I'd have them talk about it. I say, okay, well, who would like to share? Why ice cream? Why cake? And maybe try and get people to go to your side a little bit. But it looks like ice cream is a clear winner here. Okay. All right. So then we'd bump it up a level. So maybe we'd say, okay, so ice cream is one, cake is gone forever. You will never see cake again, but at least you have ice cream. Let's think about now, we have to decide between a world with no ice cream or no games. This includes sports, board games, any type of game. Which one would you rather keep? Ice cream or games? Ooh, or not even a competition here. Okay.
I think you all don't remember how much some of our younger students like ice cream, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put yourself in the shoes of your middle school students for this.
All right, so games. Okay, a few people say ice cream. Okay, but looks like games is a clear winner. So we're gonna go with games. We're keeping games. Ice cream is gone, cake is gone, but we still have games. So life is still great. Let's see, what about a world with no games or a world with no books? Which one are we keeping? No games or no books? What are we keeping? Books, a few games. Okay, games, books. Looks like books is the winner. All right, it was close. It was close, but we're going with books. Books has won this round, so no more games. All right, and then we get even more challenging. So let's say a world with no books or a world with no water. Which one? Which one are we keeping? Water, okay. A world with no games or ice cream is like a world with no oxygen and water. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, well, water wins. And then we talk about why. So why would you choose water? Why would you keep water? That's just like a fun game to get them thinking about what's more important, kind of ranking what we need in our lives as humans, and then hopefully to get them talking about why water is so important. So that would just be how I introduce them, just to get them to start thinking about it. After that, we want to go back.
Yep, sorry. Let me reshare here. Okay.
All right. So after that, we might look at some videos just to give them a little bit more background about the water crisis in America and in the world. We have a couple of videos that you could look at. This one looks specifically at people in America who do not have access to clean running water and how it affected them during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we can look at a little bit of this. We're not going to look at the whole thing together, but we can look at some of it together.
And again, the reason why we've asked Ariel to join us here is not to show us how to play a YouTube video. We all know how to do that, right? What I'd like you all to pay attention to is the questions that Ariel asks and the points that she pauses to engage the students, because that's the thing that we want you to take away from the session. And also we have a bunch of videos that you can show students too, but that's just a bonus. And Ariel, just let me know on the class.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I need to share my sound.
With no safe running water. Lee Cowan first visited some of them several years ago. This morning, he updates us on a problem you probably thought was long behind us.
The Navajo Nation occupies nearly 30,000 square miles of territory across parts of 3 western states, bountiful in its beauty, but often barren of the most basic needs. COVID hit this community especially hard. Infections per capita were higher here than even in New York at its peak. While health officials warned the nation to wash our hands frequently, here, that basic protection is a luxury. In more than a third of the homes, the taps are bone dry.
We don't use the sink because there's no running water.
Not a drop.
Yeah.
When we first visited Loretta Smith 5 years ago, we watched her husband haul water inside, bucket by bucket. And it was the same routine in nearly every home we visited.
Most Americans take it completely for granted. They thought this problem was solved a long time ago.
That's George McGraw, founder and CEO of the nonprofit Dig Deep.
As soon as your piece aired, we were getting calls and emails from people across the country saying, oh, like I live in this town in Mississippi, or I live in this town in California, and I thought we were the only ones. I thought we were the only town without running water in America.
No one even knew just how bad the problem was. No government agency keeps track. So, Dig Deep, along with the U.S. Water Alliance, conducted their own survey. The results? 2 million Americans, 2 million, and probably more, are suffering today with no safe running water or even plumbing in their homes.
There was one finding from the report that is, I think, truly terrifying. And that's that in 6 states and in Puerto Rico, during the time we were studying in the report, those states went backwards in access.
So it got worse.
Yeah, the problem got worse. And I mean, how can that be?
For the past 8
Right there.
Yeah, so the video, it looks at different communities and different people from all different backgrounds who don't have access to water. But I might just ask a couple questions as we go through. So I might pause there and ask something along the lines of, okay, well, how many people in America don't have access to clean running water? I might ask how it's affecting their lives, how it affects their health. I might ask something along the lines of who is helping with this problem, who would we expect to be helping with the problem, who's actually helping according to this video, just to get them thinking about this as well. There's also the idea of possibly having a scavenger hunt activity with this, so they'd have claims that they're looking for as we watch the video, but I'd like to also ask questions as we pause and discuss to get them thinking about the topic more. All right.
Yeah, and Ariel has added these discussion questions for this video specifically on the slides for today, and they're in the notes section that goes with that slide. I'll paste the slideshow, and you have it in your classroom and Google folder, but there is the direct link if you want it as well. So we'll keep going. All right, share screen. And then here are just a few more videos that you can watch with your students to kind of keep them going on different topics they might be interested in with relation to the case. And then Ariel, do you want to talk about mini debates?
Yeah. So after that, we just do a mini debate. It's not following the debate rounds. We don't have like the constructive, the cross-examination. It's just looking at different topics and to get them thinking about their stance when it comes to these issues. So how this would work is I would typically time it. So I wouldn't want to spend the whole period on one question. I would time it. So I would read a statement and then again, have the student have some movement. So on one side, do they agree with the statement, or on the other side, do they disagree with the statement? And then give them time to talk amongst themselves and share out. So for example, here are some statements we could use. The government should be responsible for regulating water. Do we agree? Do we disagree? And they go to a side and discuss. And then I'll have one person from each side share out. Individuals and corporations should be able to own sources of water, such as rivers, lakes, underground water. Access to water is a basic human right. If a parent is unable to provide their children with basic necessities such as water, the government should take the children away from those parents. So these are all issues that are going to come up in, or that could come up in the packets, but at least they're forming their own opinions before they even look at the evidence. They're thinking about these issues and debating them and talking about them ahead of time. Yeah, do we want to try one? Or?
No, I think we'll save time so we can dig a little bit deeper into some of the other activities that you But each of these, like Ariel is saying, could be its own mini debate. If you have been, doing this for a little bit while, or if you're brand new, mini debates are pretty easy to run, and you can use almost any format you want. Like Ariel was saying, even just setting up so you have agree or disagree, and you can assign the sides if you don't have split numbers or even numbers, with a 30-second, opening speech and a 30-second response, and maybe, you have one-on-one debates where each person gets 30 seconds, and that's it. Maybe they get two 30-second speeches. Maybe they get a question in addition to those things. Maybe you make it a 2-on-2 debate. Almost any format works for these things. Just keeping it focused on learning about the topics before they've dug too deep into the evidence so they get to form their own opinions is the main objective here. All right. And then, of course, at some point, we need to show them the evidence. So let's see. I wish there was a quicker way to get back to screen sharing, but here we go. All right. So focused ideas for novices, introducing the evidence.
Okay. So this slide, it says full debate without the evidence. And it's not the regular time. This is very truncated, shortened time period. Once they've looked at the issue, once they've seen some of the background information, they've started to form their own opinions, I might, just to get them comfortable with the structure of debate, have them do a debate using the debate format. So 1AC, 1NC, very short, like 30 seconds for each. And I'd give them the topic. So I might say, right now, most of the U.S. population relies on public water utilities for access to running water. Should the United States government expand access to privatized water? We'd have them brainstorm so they can think about what are some of the pros, the cons, and then do a mini debate round so they're comfortable using that format. Typically, after we do that, they say, well, I didn't have enough to say. And that's when we say, okay, great, we have the evidence packet. And that's when we introduce, okay, with BDL, we give you a lot of the evidence and we talk about how the packet works. After they've done kind of a round without evidence, we give them the packet. The first time they see the packet can be a little bit overwhelming or scary. So we teach them how to navigate the packet. So we look at the glossary, the summaries, how to tell the affirmative section from the negative, the headings, all of that, especially if they're new to debate. Just a lesson on how to use the packet is important. And then we go over the summaries. So they look at the affirmative and the negative summary, and we spend some time explaining what the main arguments of each side are. So they understand what the affirmative is trying to prove, what the negative is trying to prove, and what their arguments are.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, for students who are new to a debate packet, they likely don't understand all the resources that are available within the novice packets, right? We do a lot to try and make it, accessible, and that includes putting in like a glossary and stuff. So, even if you want to have things like, have them look up terms to see if they can find something in the glossary, do like a word search kind of thing, or have them explain the summaries in their own words. I totally like the idea that Ariel is bringing up of just get comfortable with the idea of a packet and everything available to you before you try and dig too deep into the evidence.
Right. Once we've done that, we start to go through the arguments together as a group. So I like to read each card together. And this is a time to teach the students, you stand when you're reading your evidence, you're giving a speech, you read out loud. I might model the first card, have call students to do the other cards. And after each card, we would discuss it. So we discuss what are the main ideas, what is the purpose of this card, what is it saying? And I tend to give my students Post-it notes. And after we've discussed it, each student will take a Post-it note and they'll write down a summary of what the card is saying, just 1 or 2 sentences. And if they have any questions, they'd write that down as well. And that way, by the time we've gone through the affirmative and the negative, each page has a Post-it note with a summary, so they know, okay, this is basically a summary of what the argument is. It's easier for them when they're going through it. This normally takes about 2 practices. So I'd spend 1 practice going through the affirmative, another one going through the negative.
All right. And so we've taken some of Ariel's activities, thank you, Ariel, and put them into BDL lessons 4 through 7 in the novice curriculum as well. So you'll see some of these things in there as you get them each week or in the larger folder. And now we're on to the activity we're going to try.
Okay, so once we've gone through the evidence, we've read it all together, we've discussed it. Then we do an activity where they try and find what they think is the strongest piece of evidence for the affirmative and the strongest piece of evidence for the negative. So what's basically the strongest card, or what they think would be like the silver bullet for their argument, depending on what side they are on. Once they have found that, so I give everyone some time to find it, and then I have them share out why they think that's the strongest piece of evidence. And then as a bonus, sometimes I'll ask them, okay, well, if you were on the other side and someone used this piece of evidence, how would you counter that? What would you say, or what piece of evidence could you use to counter that, that argument? So we can try doing that.
Yeah, so let me stop the share, and I'm going to drop that packet link into the chat. So let's see, copy link URL. So everyone, please open up the packet link on your own computer now, and we're going to break you into breakout rooms of 3 or 4 people each. So let's see, 36, 39. That's we'll make 10 rooms, and I'm just going to randomly assign you to rooms. Let's see, recreate 10 rooms. Assign automatically, yes, okay. All right, so what's gonna happen now is you will have, let's say 10 minutes. From now until 12:51, we want you to look at the affirmative side. We're gonna do this just for the affirmative. So only look at the affirmative side of the evidence, and we want you in the next 10 minutes to individually pick the strongest page of the affirmative and then discuss what you chose with your group, right? So if other people in your breakout room chose the same piece of evidence, talk about why. If other people chose a different piece of evidence, have a little debate about why you think yours is stronger than theirs. Ultimately, you're trying to decide which of these would be the most important or strongest piece of evidence for the affirmative team in a debate round. It's good for your novices and even your junior varsity debaters to know what they think their strongest piece of evidence is going in, because that's the argument that they can rely on when they go into their debate rounds. And then, as Ariel said, we can do this with both sides. As an extension activity later on, you could do, how would you respond to that strongest piece of evidence from the other side? But for right now, it's just find the strongest affirmative evidence and discuss it with your groups. And so in 9 minutes, please come back here and tell us what piece of evidence you have picked. And again, the packet link is in the chat. All right, welcome back, everyone. So, Ariel, can you, are you still on our call?
Yes, right.
Okay, great, there you are. I couldn't find you on my screen. Can you tell us what you would do at this point, now that groups have each identified their strongest argument or strongest piece of evidence?
Yeah, so at this point, they should feel comfortable with the packet and with the arguments. And at this point, we would do a actual debate. So we would try to have them get comfortable using the debate format. So 1AC and 1NC, I'd actually draw it on the board behind me, or on the board so they could see it, along with the time. They'd have a timeline, like 1AC and the amount of minutes, first cross-X, 1NC, cross-X, so they'd know what's happening. And then we would go through it. I tend to assign teams at this point because I found that most people want to be affirmative for the first debate. So I give them a speech about why it's important to be able to debate both sides of the argument, and how when you go to a tournament, you're going to have to do both sides anyway. And then we go through it. As they do the debate, I tend to use reduced times, that way they don't feel overwhelmed with a lot of dead time, especially for the rebuttals, because at this point, it's harder for them to fill up the whole time for the rebuttals. And I tend to pause after each speech and give some feedback. So for example, they'll do the 1AC and I'll pause and say, okay, great. You just want to make sure they're projecting, slow down at this point, right? I'm glad that you use this card. You want to make sure that you get this card in because you said that was your most important one and you didn't get to the plan. And so we go through each one, or even something like cross-X, I'll say, okay, great. That's a great question. You might want to write that question down and use it. How would we respond to that? So as we were going through, it's not a straight debate like you would have in a tournament where you get feedback at the end. I try and coach them and give feedback during the debate that they're doing. And that hopefully will get them ready for the scrimmage.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for that lead in. So I want to share, so last January and even previously before that, at some point, some of you have been to scrimmages. This year in our tournament calendar, if you remember from yesterday morning, we're going to have a mandatory scrimmage on a weekday afternoon, one debate round in October. It'll be a few different weekdays, so we'll find a weekday that works well for your team. And one again in January, one for the first case and one for the second case. The goal of these scrimmages is exactly like Ariel just described. We want to get the students feeling comfortable enough so that they can debate at the scrimmages, but they're not going to be chosen winners or losers. There are not going to be speaker points given out. It's just going to be experienced judges, a lot of either high school students for the middle school or alumni for the high school students, and other experienced judges walking them through those debate rounds in the scrimmages so that they get comfortable with the arguments on both sides. So those scrimmages, again, in October and January on the first and second case will not be competitive. They'll be all about learning the case so that when they go to the tournaments in November and December and February and March, they are feeling a lot more confident in themselves in making these arguments. So a lot of these activities, again, that Ariel is sharing now are designed to get them ready for that scrimmage, but also once they get to that scrimmage, they won't be totally, they won't be totally out on their own yet. They're going to be walked through those debate rounds. And then after the scrimmage, but before the tournament, they may need to work on a few things. And Ariel, what are those things that you like to work on with them? Here we go.
At this point, I tend to focus on cross-X and writing rebuttals. I think the students feel comfortable with the construction speeches, and they're like, how do I write a rebuttal, or what do I do during cross-X? So for cross-X, we play the questioning game just to get them comfortable asking lots of questions. We talk about different types of questions, the purpose of questions, and I think there is a lesson that BDL has lots of great lessons about writing questions for cross-X and responding to questions. There's an activity I like to do where students, again, they have their strongest piece of evidence card, and then they'll read it, and the rest of the team will generate questions and ask them questions about it, and they'll try and answer the question. So just practice coming up with questions and responding to questions. And then for rebuttals, I like to have them look at other debates, videos of debates, see how those rebuttals are done. There's a rebuttal organizer that BDL has that I like the students to use when we practice writing rebuttals. And I tell them, of course, it changes based on the debate that they're in, but at least they'll have a structure going in of a affirmative and negative rebuttal.
And my apologies, it looks like those two links in the yellow bullet points are broken, so I will fix those, but you'll be able to see those in the presentation shortly. So let's see, a couple of last things here. We're going to skip right ahead to if you have any thoughts about this session that you want to share in the chat, we're glad to. If you have any questions for Ariel, we'll take those as well. If you have to run right now, please complete the exit ticket. Again, it's very similar to yesterday's exit ticket, just about today's sessions. We'll use that feedback to inform our practice and our coach camp for the rest of the week. Also, the link to sign up for office hours is included in this PowerPoint, and I'll drop it in the chat in just a second. The office hours themselves will take place in this Zoom room, right? So we're going to be in this room from 1:30 to 2:30 today, and then also we'll have some times on on Wednesday and Thursday. But if you are doing office hours, no matter who you are meeting with, you're coming to this room, and then we'll put you in the appropriate breakout room from there with your program person. All right, so let's give a big round of applause. Thank you to Ariel, and I will see you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thanks, Ariel. Bye, everyone.